Your friends have lost.
So part 2 of Stranger Things Season 4 was released this weekend on Netflix, and like many of you, I was extremely excited for this season, or this part of the season to come out, as I was a big fan of part 1 of Season 4, and this one really did not disappoint in any way for me. It was an epic conclusion to this season of the series, and it set it up for what I assume is going to be an absolutely fantastic concluding season for the show as a whole. It was really, really impressive. It was really amazing. One of my biggest things that I loved about this particular part is just how many iconic moments you had in it. And I'm not going to go into spoilers in regards to what some of those were, but it was just awesome to see them. Some of the characters really had some great moments. They got to shine. And that's one of the things that I liked about this part of the season as well, is that a lot of the characters really had those moments to shine. It's not like any of them were kind of left out. Whereas in Season 4, I felt like some of the characters really weren't as interesting. They didn't have as much to do. This part of the season, for the most part, goes a lot more to the characters, and you feel like they all kind of are significant and they have a part to play. There are still some of them that I feel were a little bit on the lesser side. They were there, but they weren't as necessary. For me, though, the most improved character of this particular part has to go to Argyle, who was a character that they introduced for the first time in part 1. And he was okay in that one. He's just kind of this comedic character to have with him. And he still very much is that in part 2, but I felt like he had more to offer and that he had a bigger part to play in this one. And so I really enjoyed that. I actually found him to be quite entertaining in this second part. So it was great to see them to have those characters that maybe didn't love as much from part 1 get a little bit more time to shine in part 2. Another thing that I really enjoyed is that this season has a significant amount of action in it, as well as a lot of that still scary horror vibe that you got in part 1. I think part 1 is definitely still the scarier of the two. They kind of emphasize the horror aspects of it in that part of the season. This side really leans more into the action, but overall, still very good, still very creepy, and it had just a great feel to it. I loved the way that it looked. It felt like this epic cinematic conclusion to it, and I thought that was awesome. Another thing, and probably one of my favorite things that I liked about this particular part of the season, is that despite being this massive event that was occurring, and it is the biggest ending we've had to any Stranger Things season so far, it doesn't stop focusing on the characters. It still takes its time to have those slower moments and to have the characters interact, to have some reunions and relationships kind of come back, and we get to see them talk with each other and just grow together. And I love that, because what really makes this show so interesting to me is not so much the story. That is amazing and I really enjoy it, but it's the characters. I've learned to love a lot of these characters, and I learned to love even more of them in this season. So there were some really great moments between them. There were some really emotional moments that occur between characters in this one, and I really liked that. I liked that it had the emotion to go along with the epic action and the big conclusion side of this. And like I said, it sets it up for what I'm hoping to be a fantastic conclusion in Season 5. And so I'm very, very excited to see that. I enjoyed this one quite a lot. There's really nothing in it that I found to be disappointing. There was nothing that I saw that I was like, wow, I wish they'd done something completely different. I had very different ideas about what I thought was going to go down, but I'm kind of glad that they didn't go the way that I thought they would. I actually liked the way that this one ended. I felt that it brought a little bit of kind of that darkness, but at the same time a little bit of hope and victory, and I really liked how it had a mix of everything there, and so that was great. So overall for me, I think that this part of the season was a little bit better than part 1. In many ways. I gave part 1 an A- originally, and for this one I'm going to go ahead and give it an A, and that really is going to be my thoughts on this season as a whole. I think it's fantastic. I would give it an A overall. I actually put out a reel just the other day that was going through my ranking of the seasons of Stranger Things, and I had this one at number 1. I'll say that is for the most part fairly accurate. It's actually pretty hard for me to rank these seasons, as I love them all pretty equally, and I like a lot of them for different reasons. And so season 4 I liked because of how grand it was. To me, it's the bigger story, it's the more interesting, but there are still some things that I love about those other seasons. And so it's my favorite, but at the same time, it's not my favorite because of how much I care about those others. But it's a fantastic series. I gave it an A as a whole. I definitely recommend you check it out if you are a fan of Stranger Things. If you aren't a fan of Stranger Things, I invite you to check out the other seasons as you build up your way to check out season 4. It is fantastic. Now, on the cleanliness side, this is very, very similar to what we got in part 1 of this season. It's a lot of the same things that you kind of have to look out for in this one, although I actually think this one was a little bit better than season 4. There are a few new things in this one as well, but I'll go ahead and talk about those. Like I mentioned in my review for part 1, the biggest thing about this new season that kind of sets it apart from the other seasons is that they focus more on the horror side of things and on the scary aspects of Stranger Things. A lot more than they have in previous seasons, and it can be surprisingly creepy at moments. This one still has that creepy feel, it still has that overall horror tone to it, but I don't find it to be nearly as scary as it was in part 1, so I actually think it was a little bit better in regards to that. I still think it has a great feel about it though, because I did like that horror side to it in the first part. Other thing with this one is, like in the first part, there are some fairly gory, brutal moments that occur. This season, or this part of the season, once again has that. I would actually say there's some parts that are even a little bit more gory, but I don't think there's nearly as many brutal moments. And so there's still definitely a lot of action and things like that you need to look out for, and overall there's more action in this part of the season than there was in the part 1. And so there is a lot of that, and some of it can be rather violent. There is a lot of fighting and a lot of things that occur because of those fights, and so I would look out for that. Go along with that, you also have kind of your casual, your simple things that you always have in these shows with the swearing, a little bit of sexual references or jokes or things here and there. Now, there is one part in this season where there is a character in which you see her in her bra. It's only for a couple of seconds, but it is something that pops up, and I believe that's in the first episode, episode 8. But it's in there, so you may want to watch out for that. But other than that, it's about the same. It's on par with the first part of this, the biggest things being the horror, the gore, and that side of the show that we didn't have in the other seasons of Stranger Things. But I'm going to go ahead and give this one just a little bit of a higher rating than what I gave part 1, which was a D+. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a C on the cleanliness rating. I definitely don't think this is going to be for everybody. I definitely don't think it's going to be for a lot of kids. But it is something that if they've watched the previous seasons and they want to watch this season, you may want to preview it a little bit beforehand. But if you do and you find it worthwhile for them, and again, I don't think it's going to affect a lot of people. I think most teenagers are going to be specifically fine with this. But check it out beforehand if you think some of the younger viewers might have a hard time with it. Overall, I don't think it's terrible. It's just that scary side of it. But it's worth checking out if you think they're going to be okay.
Do it.
So guys, those are my thoughts on Stranger Things Season 4 Part 2. And like I said, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great conclusion. I thought it set things up great for the coming Season 5. But have you guys had the opportunity to check it out yet? If you have, let us know down in the comments what you thought of it and whether or not it got you excited for Season 5 coming in the coming years. Other than that, look forward to some more reviews coming in the next week for Minions as well as Thor Love and Thunder. Be sure to let me know if there are any other movies that you would like to see reviews on done as well. Please like and subscribe to this video, and I will see you all in the next one.